everyone. Welcome to this edition of Date with Tech, brought to you by TressCon in association with Launch Foundry and Below the Fold. Today I have with me Martin Yates from Presight, a G42 company. Martin, welcome to Date with Tech.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you as well. Martin, before we get started about some of the serious emerging tech and AI discussions, your background is quite interesting. You have defense, you have government policy, you have mobility. How have you switched between these different roles and different hats? And what's been the core of all these transitions?
Okay, well, thanks for looking up my profile. Yeah, I realize, so let me share with you, when I realize and I look back at those profiles and positions, I start to go, I'm not a teenager anymore. So that was my first observation, but thanks. Yeah, look, I've been really blessed to have had like many different sort of opportunities. I was originally born in the UK, so I've been working a lot in the defense space. And how to say, then that sort of say, well, defense is great, but the salary wasn't quite there. So oil and gas looked like the place to be. So I went over to the oil and gas industry, spent some years there on remote platforms. And yeah, essentially then one of my other key sort of like career milestones was switching into the automotive industry. And so that was Mercedes-Benz. That was just like 9.5 years plus. Started in Germany, and then they moved me to a country called Singapore, which I couldn't find on the map originally because it's quite a small place.
Then, but now everybody knows.
But yeah. So that was and again, it was a beautiful country, and we helped do the transformation across the Asia Pacific region. So that was absolutely awesome. And I fell in love with that country so much. I said, what do I have to do to take the citizenship? They said, well, you have to terminate your British citizenship. I was like, oh, okay then. So
the Queen wouldn't like that.
Yeah. People thought I was smart that it was to do with Brexit, but I said no. So now I should take the credit for that. No, so then I took the new nationality of Singaporean and basically joined with government and the government party in terms of supporting the vision for Singapore, right? So not only was, I employed, I moved to Dell Technologies as the global CTO for smart cities, and we built new platforms within Dell that we'd export internationally. And, again, on that journey, it was based in Singapore. Eventually, I said I took the whole path of Singapore citizenship. Then I was invited to help build Singapore, help to sort of help define the standards, help to define the security standards that you need. Because if you are turning your complete country into a digital country, you better make sure that you're really protecting it, right? So there's a lot of new standards that had to be sort of created around that. And so that was incredibly important. And, literally just a few years ago, I'd been visiting the UAE. It's an amazing place. And I got the opportunity. Someone gave me a phone call and said, oh, why don't you look at the UAE? And I said, well, why not? For me, it was almost like I've been to most places, but I've never really spent time here. And it looked like the place where artificial intelligence and digital transformation was really moving at a tremendous speed. So, I felt that there was a lot of value I could add to that. So, yeah, so here I am 3 years later in the Presight, as you mentioned, it's a G42 company, and we're building amazing things.
Welcome to the UAE, one of the coolest, smartest, tech-savvy countries. And
Absolutely
I think
agree.
3 years, you would have experienced this in the last 3 years because the leadership that we have here, the infrastructure, the innovation. I don't want to influence your thoughts, but I've been living here for the last 15 years, and I just love this place.
Yeah.
Speaking of yours, the transition and how you've done a lot of work from a smart nation standpoint and a smart city building standpoint. UAE, of course, is also a smart nation that most people are quite familiar with, right? Presight, part of G42, is also one of those companies that's helping enable UAE and a lot of other countries with their respective smart nation vision. So can you talk to us about some of the amazing work that you guys are doing in country and perhaps some of the work that you might be doing outside of the UAE that people are not familiar of?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we're within the UAE and G42 and Presight is a name that's known, but as our market is international, we're expecting to see a lot of our super accelerated growth even outside of GCC. So for example, recently we've signed contracts to be able to go and implement smart cities in Albania.
Wow.
Right. 20 smart cities in Albania. So yeah, we're moving towards Europe. We have Kazakhstan, but one thing that sort of ties them all together is really about we're solving problems that leaders have in their cities. So the biggest problem, and I mentioned this on a previous session, that mobility. Right?
Yeah.
Now, mobility is a lovely word, but when I really get down to it, it's about transportation and it's about not being in traffic queues.
Come to my city, Bengaluru, which is known for being a tech capital, but now it's also known for being a horrendous traffic capital. So I think we could take some help from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, again, it was so funny. I was on just a session earlier and I said, there's not much point having a smart city if you can't breathe.
Yeah.
Right. So we do need to really double down and focus on, are we planning cities right? Is our transportations policy right? Is our overall mobility strategy right? And that you're changing systems that are decades and decades old. So it's not that easy. So whilst you have all that technology available to you now, it doesn't help if you don't have the support, if you don't have the budget to be able to implement, or you don't have the policies in place to support you, or indeed the spirit of everyone wanting to follow that same vision.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's typically where, the difference between talking smart city and actually delivering a smart city is 80% based on people.
True.
The technology we have. We build amazing platforms right here in the UAE. We code here in the UAE for the export markets. Not only is it for the UAE, but we go international. But again, I can give you all the best technology, but what will it help you if different agencies are fighting over different areas of data control, for example? Right?
Yeah.
You will never be smart unless you figure out how to collaborate. And collaboration is not just a word, it's a set of actions that need to be done.
Absolutely. I liked what you said. You said you're coding in the UAE. So you're coding in the UAE, but you're coding for the world. Because you are helping a lot of other countries also. You talked about how a smart city or a smart nation is all about its people, the infrastructure, the traffic management. So the basics, the people, process, technology pretty much applies when it comes to enabling a true smart city or a true smart nation as well, right?
Those are templates that carry across. So wherever you go, literally you could be put on an airplane blindfolded and you turn up in a country and say, and you kind of already know what the problems might be. There's always a set of problems which need to be addressed first. And then there's those secondary ones, which are like value add, like, for example, recycling, for example.
True.
Right. Or a greater focus on sustainability. And that's a huge topic.
I think with massive urbanization, a mass concentration of people within cities, this traffic issue, as well as the sustainability and the carbon emission issue is ballooning. But I think there's a lot of action also that's being taken. Now, for you guys as Presight, where does artificial intelligence fit in solving all of this? Is it that, that silver bullet, or you've got a combination of a lot of other things with it?
Okay. Where does it fit in? It fits in everywhere.
Yeah.
Look, by the way, this is interesting. For decades, we've been using artificial intelligence, not just Presight G42, but I mean, all organizations have been using some, but it's been very embedded in systems, much deeper in the background. But of course, a few years ago, generative AI came, democratized this whole ability to use AI to everyone using natural language. So that was a sort of a huge leap. We're going to continue to see that change as people evolve and want to do bigger and smarter things.
Yeah, true. You said AI is pretty much getting used everywhere, right? I want to hear from you, either your personal opinion or that of the business. What's your take on ethics, governance, security, as well as, topics like data sovereignty and data governance in this AI era, in this so-called smart, interconnected, integrated era?
And that's a great question. I don't think it's really a new question just for the AI.
Yeah.
I mean, since we had the internet, since people could discover that you can share things, it was very convenient to do, the picture postings of this is my status, this is what I had for lunch and dinner, and so much is already being shared, right, across the world, and we know that. Right, across various different organizations. So that journey of, data governance and ethics, a lot of that's already been explored. But now as we go into AI, of course, we come back to that and we say, is all that information, that decision-making being put to a good cause, right? In terms of all those various different sets of data points. So ethics is very much determined by the country that you're in, of course, because different cultures, perhaps different political systems will have different ways in which sharing is accepted and not accepted. But I want to come to a very important point, regardless of that model, the cybersecurity that protects this. And I was just having a great conversation with someone earlier. I said, look, as we move towards digital transformation, as we become more and more reliant on systems, right, we've also got to think about what if it wasn't there? right? What if there was no electricity for a day, a week? A good example, by the
That
way.
scares me.
I don't know if you were traveling through London a few weeks ago, but there was a fire
Yeah.
in a transformer station. The whole of Heathrow International Airport shut
Standstill.
down,
Yes.
up to 18 hours. And you just can't imagine. But
One of the
that's,
world's most traveled airports, Heathrow. So
yeah, you wouldn't imagine it.
highest
And
traffic.
so you've got 3 power stations around, but for whatever reason, and then they've done all the deep due diligence on this now, of course, but they said, well, we have to learn how to know that something's going to have a power outage, and we have to know how to reconnect the power.
Yeah.
And it's got to be faster than 10 hours. So that's just a very small example,
Yeah.
of the kind of things we need to think about. So we need to think about digital resilience, right? And enhanced cybersecurity. So those are the things I would honestly say that keep me awake, right? That dependency. So we have to be mindful, and everything we build and everything we design, we have to design that resilience in.
And do you agree that the level of maturity now and the level of involvement and participation from boards, chairmen, founders, owners in conversations around digital resilience, cybersecurity, proactive cybersecurity measures as opposed to reactive measures is actually quite higher now, quite heightened?
Oh, yeah.
years ago?
It's always funny. The motivation for fire insurance goes up when your house has been on fire, right?
Exactly.
So I think,
Unfortunately, but yeah, exactly.
and I think like most people have had some experience somewhere in the world of something that's gone wrong. So from a board perspective, has it become a line item? Absolutely. Are we doing the absolute best in it? You need to be continually going back to your plan and revisiting it. It's
never
not
enough.
It's never, you never can spend enough on resilience, but you have to be realistic. There has to be a line from your risk management perspective. But with all the new challenges, you can't just say, oh, okay, here's my plan for 1 year. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. You almost have to be revisiting it, on a daily basis. And that's where AI can come in, because AI can rerun scenarios and situations that you weren't thinking about, or you don't have time to fire drill,
True.
so to speak. So AI itself is an essential tool in building resilience.
Yeah. Now, Martin, because you are primarily a strategy, advisory, and how to bring in communities and cultures together guy. Smart cities and smart nations are a combination of course, government policies, regulations, vision, will. Then you've got the enterprises, and then you've got the people, the general masses. You've got youth. You've got different generations, different cultures, different races. There is so much diversity out there in terms of the types of people, the types of entities, the types of thinking, etc., right? Now, while technology, infrastructure, emergence, etc., can all be addressed, and let's assume that we're doing a great job, from a culture standpoint, where do you think tech can help or not help in bringing everybody together and actually building a true smart nation, which is an intelligent nation, not just by technology means, but by also the human intelligence and the collective of the human intelligence?
Yeah, well, I think you've nailed it there, to be honest, all right? What do they say? You can bring a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. Well, absolutely. You can tell people about AI, but it doesn't mean that you deliver the outcome. And in a human-centric journey, which we're all moving into, whether we like it or not, right? The reality is that we're being more and more surrounded by digital. So it's absolutely essential that you keep focus on what it means to be sort of human, what it means to have those centrics. And for me, like 80% of my time, and it could be between 70 and 90%, it's not on the technology. If you want the technology to make your dreams happen, we probably have it.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have it, we'll build it for you. Right. But that doesn't help if everyone is not on board. Right. And that really comes a little bit now down to the leadership of the country and the education towards people, and saying, look, this is not the traditional university journey of the past, right?
Yeah.
4 years to learn this, right? You probably have 4 days to learn something you'd have in 4 years, right? I mean, one of my recommendations I always say to people, you want to know what's happening tomorrow? Watch a YouTube video, because someone's probably just released a new product that does something amazing that wasn't there the day before.
Yeah.
Right?
It might be obsolete in a week from now.
Yeah. So, for myself as a strategy and advisor, it's like, how do I build resilience in change?
Yeah.
Knowing that it's going to change. And, I used to do plans like really long time ago that was a 10-year plan. And then it went down to 5 years, for accuracy purposes, right?
3 years.
And then it went down to 3 years. And now, like, okay, you can get it about right for 12 months. And then we need to build this buffer of change in. So how do I change my organization to accept and reboot myself again? You know,
Yeah.
this reinvention of yourself, it's pretty hard,
Yeah.
right? But you can do it. And that's what's going to make the difference in the world. And so bringing all the people together, the stakeholder management, you've got to bring everyone with you. Because if you don't bring everyone with you, you end up in a society that's becoming polarized
True.
and diversified, which is not a good thing. The new world demands us to be together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think the unification can happen at a much faster pace. The transformation can also happen at a much faster pace because you now have the collective power.
Yeah.
Collective power of people, their intelligence, and then AI, of course, supporting.
But again, you need to, and it's like everyone, right?
Yeah.
In any task in our life, that you have to have a certain motivation to drive you towards that. So what drives the average citizen towards that? Or do they just say, I give up, I don't need to be part of this, something will just happen for me? That's not the world you need to live in now. Like everyone must be on board, right? From the early school kids all the way through to seniors.
Yeah.
Right. And remember, we've got an aging population.
True.
Right. And this has been like one of the world problems right now is people are becoming much, much older and the young ones are not replacing. So of course, AI will do a lot in that space, but we still have to look after the silver generation of people. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we doing for them? How are we making their lives better? Is there anything we can do to keep their brains active, right? And
so bridging the digital divide or bridging the gap in rapid change that's happening all around them and not focusing only on a particular sector or a segment of the community, but holistically looking at everybody.
Absolutely. But again, people have to understand, and it's no different with us. We have to understand why we're going to do what we're going to do. Yeah. Because if we don't, we want the best things to happen, not the worst things.
True.
Right. So you whether it's at the government level, whether it's at the community level, people need to take leadership and say, these are the changes we need to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's say I'm the head of AI country and I want to work with Presight. What would be those top 3 to 5 things that I can expect from Presight as a country to become smarter, more intelligent, technology driven, and perhaps to transform my digital economy?
Okay, wow, that's there's a lot to unpack there, right? So the realistic approach that we take with everyone is like, what problems are you trying to solve, and what problems haven't you thought about yet? Right? Because very often, people see what's immediately in front of them, but good consultancy, good advisory means that, by the way, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen.
Uncovering the blind
Have
spots.
you thought about a good example would be climate change, right? The seawater's rising. Right? The floodings are increasing. We've seen across the whole world, the floods have increased everywhere, right? So how are we planning for that, right? What systems are we putting in place that we can plan our cities, plan our country better? Do we understand the use of our resource? We understand the use of our human assets, right? Do we have that complete picture? And so, for us, we look at it very holistically and say, where do you want to get to? And these are the things that are going to change. And these are the steps you need to take. So digital transformation is a kind of a big word. It sort of covers everything, but we need to break that down into usable data.
Yeah.
And half the problem in the world today, the reason AI often underperforms the expectations of what people have is it wasn't fed the right data.
True.
Right? I mean, you've probably seen that in the early days where it comes up with all.
Yeah.
So the secret of success that I take as advisory and both the organization is, if we don't get the data right, if we don't train the data right, don't expect those amazing results that you've read about in the magazines or you've seen in the news, right? So it's all about the data. It's all about being able to process. So we look at that as a model, collecting all the information in from sensors, collecting it in from different government agencies, making sense and being predictive, not just what happened last month or what's happening now, but you've got to be so much smarter in future. You've got to be a predictive society, a predictive country.
Yeah, absolutely. So focusing on problems of today, tomorrow, what you know, what you don't know, uncovering the blind spots, then making sure that you're collecting the right set and the right amount of data, structured, unstructured, whatnot. And then with the power of your predictive analytics and using the power of artificial intelligence, helping you truly become. So I, as the head of AI Nation, now can claim that my country is smart because I chose to work with a partner that helped me truly uncover my blind spots and solve everything in the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's dead smart one right there. So yeah, look, and if you have that country, which the country that you talk about,
we need to
if
build
you
that
are a
together.
country, then we should start talking. I will be more than happy to roll out a template for you and a future vision.
Absolutely. Now let's, that's all serious is nice, right? But I typically like to also talk a little bit about non-serious stuff. So I want to ask you a couple of questions more personally directed to you.
Okay.
And this is not Presight. This is not G42 opinion. It's Martin Yates.
And this is unscripted. I don't know what you're going to ask me, right?
Do you think AI will replace your job? Cliche question, but I love to.
Oh, that's like will it replace my job? How many years are we talking about? Look, I think that there's AI is basically going through different stages of maturity. Will it replace my job? I don't know if it'll get my kind of cranky humor sometimes.
It won't.
But I say with super intelligence, I won't quite underestimate that.
Yeah.
No, look, I think the decades of experience that have been stored up, I'm probably a little bit more in that safe zone in terms of replacing job. But look, seriously, and we talked this earlier, that people much younger in their careers, those are the guys that really need to sort of tune in quickly to make sure that that they become the master of this and not the slave of this. Absolutely. And this has always been like this in history.
Absolutely.
Right. And so it's no different this time.
If not what you were doing currently, not advisor, not into strategy, not doing emerging tech, not into defense, oil and gas, smart city building, and the long list of things that you've done, Martin, what else would you have been doing, or what do you think you would have enjoyed?
I love being creative. I tried being an artist, that didn't work. But what painting and stuff, it doesn't work. Well, actually, it does in some ways, but I don't think it'll be world class. Although I can use AI now to do it and just write my name and say, "Oh, that's amazing." Yeah. No, like I have a passion since teenage. I have an absolutely huge passion in music, and I love mixing music and beats and things like that. So,
nice.
Yeah. So I always had this imagination of being it sounds weird. I don't know why I'm saying this. A top DJ somewhere in Ibiza, like one of these old guys with the sunglasses, sort of like just loving the tunes.
Young.
Yeah, something like this, right? So I
DJ.
So I have all the equipment at home. So that's probably what I would have done. I don't know if I'd be
defense to disco.
Yeah, defense to disco. Yeah, music and rhythm of life. But it's interesting now because we just talked about changes of jobs, and I've got my own deck home. I've been exploring with artificial intelligence, music creation and mixing.
Yeah.
And it's really doing a good job. So maybe I made the right decision to go into the tech and not into that particular area of music.
I mean, I think the creative community is complaining, but also some of them are happy because with the power of AI, they're now able to produce a lot more at a lot less time with a lot less cost, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, look at those huge fine art sales, these AI pictures. I don't know. I saw one $10 million, and it was like, so what did you do? Well, I went to my prompt and I did an artistic prompt. It wasn't just an average prompt, right? And I've made a work of art, $10 million. So like, wow, everything that we kind of thought was traditional in one sense, everything's up for change.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a mindset we both need to be like. Everyone needs to be like this.
Everything starts from in here. So your closing lines, artificial intelligence, if you were to define it or explain it in one line, one sentence, what would that be?
I've never been able to do that because there are too many areas. Yeah. That's where you go to your GPT and say, give me the answer.
Let me ask.
You can do that. You don't need me. No, look, at the end of the day, for me, it's about building on collective human intelligence, a tool set that enables us to do more.
Fantastic. So collective human intelligence tool set that helps us to do more or enables us to do more.
And doing more in whether that's in your business, whether that's in your personal life, whether you're managing a country, doing more.
Fantastic.
And don't delay.
Don't delay now because you might be late already, right? Ladies and gentlemen, Hugh Grant. I'm sorry.
Hugh Grant?
No. We have Martin Yates from Presight, a G42 company. It was such a pleasure speaking to you, Martin.
Pleasure speaking to you too. Thank you.